You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. I just happen to be up in Ohio and visiting my granddaughters, and I've got, we're doing a little bit of a different show today, and there's a reason for that. We're doing a little bit of cross-pollination. So I've got a couple guys who run a different show on the station, but we want to promote one, the station, and two, some beliefs that we all believe in because we all volunteer at the radio station, and KDW is our community radio station, and you guys know that we've got a great rapport with the city of Northport, and we're just building it stronger and stronger and stronger every day. So I'd like to take a couple minutes here, and I'm going to let Frank introduce himself and then introduce George, but kind of give us the overview and tell us why you're on the show today. And I'm going to lead in with Frank. How you doing, buddy?
Okay, Frank, Patti, and my co-host George. You want to introduce yourself?
George Aiton. Nice to be here and here in beautiful Florida.
I'll tell you one thing. We're really happy to be here, and there's no truth in that we held that bank up. George found the bank, and he picked one that was bankrupt. There was no money there, so they threw the charges out. Right, George?
Yeah, and as I'm getting away, I'm doing at least 30 and a 35. So, yeah, didn't work out well.
Fantastic. So Frank, tell us a little bit about the show.
Well, the show was on quite a while ago. That was the conservative voice. This is the new conservative voice. We were on about 5 years, and we built up about 14,000 listeners, or better than the 14,000. Then the hurricane came along and knocked out the station. It took quite a while to get back. And then we started in again. And then my co-host, unfortunately, had family illnesses, and he was moving back to Ohio, and that shut it down for a while. Then I found George, and we got him all straightened out. And George and I have a good chemistry, and we're both nutty, so that's fine, because we have to have some laughs on the show also. So now we started the show again, and I think that we will have guests. We're going to have James Buchanan on the show on that would be on Thursday, actually, and it will be we will go over everything that's been happening in Tallahassee. George, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. Frank came up to me and at a meeting one time and said, you got a great face for radio. So that's why I joined Frank on the radio. And the following week after Buchanan, I have a gentleman that I've known for about 2 years now. He's a 35-year police officer in Seattle. And if you remember when Chop and Chaz, they burnt a precinct to the ground, my buddy, Felton Miles was that was his precinct, and he was on riot duty for over 100 days. So we're going to have him on the following week, which is going to be 2 weeks from Thursday, or a week from this coming Thursday.
And then we will get Karen Rose on, and eventually Joe Gruders. I was secretary of the Republican Party for 10 years, and I worked, with Joe, and I worked with the officers of the REC, Jack also. The thing was, I got to know most of them, so I can give a call to a lot of them, say, do you want to be on the show? And since it's election time, we should be getting a good group coming to the show each week.
And, as we work as show hosts at the station, well, what's the biggest push for you guys? I know you're trying to get that build back up to 14,000 again, but that number you want is actually much bigger than that. But what is your plan for attracting more of the working class in Northport and surrounding areas to try to get them engaged.
Okay. George, you want to take that, and then I'll take it.
It's like marketing. We're going to have a product that not a lot of people have. We're going to be telling you a lot of stuff that's in the news, but not really told accurately. And we're going to come up with sources and information that that is not out there, but people need to know this kind of stuff. For just one instance, last week I talked about the M95 mask, and if you wear it more than an hour, you're poisoning yourself with the CO2 that you're giving off. And we're coming into a time now when the federal government's going to start mandating we wear masks again if they come up with this new variant. And people need to know that you're breathing poison air back into your body, and you're going to get headaches. And this happened a lot. Like I said, I'm a political escapee from the Socialist Republic of Washington State, and they mandated it. And after about an hour wearing those masks, you're lightheaded and headaches, man. So people need to know some of that stuff. So what we're going to have is a little bit of stuff that's out there, but not really 100% accurate. And what we're going to do is our product's just a little bit different than what's out there right now. And we're going to inform and entertain on the radio.
Right. And we have some things too that are current, like this campaign pledge that they sign, which is Jack wrote about it, Jack Brill. And the point is, it's a lot of baloney. They pulled this garbage before. Joe Gruder signed up. Then they swore they were not going to make this a partisan race, and he agreed with the chairman of the Democrat Party at that time and all. And guess what? They broke it. Now, who's going to monitor this thing, and who's going to say if the pledge is broken? So it's all a farce, basically, to come into that. And these are the things we want to bring out. You know, our news will also come from the Washington Examiner, the computer itself, Smart News on that. It has a good rating for that. And of course, Herald Tribune, which is a gift that just keeps giving for all the liberal garbage that's out there too. And I will take on any reporter on that itself to keep going with it. And I've debated some of them on television, ABC. So I know exactly where they're coming from with a lot of this. And George is as sharp as can be, truthfully, out there. In fact, George translates everything I say in Brooklynese, which is very difficult to do.
I spent a little time in New York, so I have to translate what he says sometimes into American English rather than, Brooklynese. So that's my job. So that's why he picked me.
Yeah, that's great, and I agree with him. You do have the face for radio, and so unfortunately we've got to deal with that facial expression, because here at Real Talk we don't just do radio, we do YouTube, Facebook, and live on Twitter, believe it or not. So we've got so many social media feeds going on right now. There's probably about 9 or 10 different social media streamings that we're doing simultaneous right now with this show. And we're getting a lot of information out that way about your product. But one of the things I wanted to point out, isn't it ironic that we're going back into a possible mask mandate when Joe Biden needs to hide in the basement?
Definitely.
I wonder why. I can't think of a good solid reason why to come up with a mask mandate during an election year. I'm looking for and I don't want to use a Fox News saying, but fair and balanced. I don't need Fauci to come back on TV and tell me how to wear a mask and him triple layer and do all the ironic things that they did back then. But I tend to agree with you on the N95 to a certain degree. I was wearing a mask when needed, when I was mandated to go into a store. Right. You're going to have a hard time convincing me to wear a mask again like I did.
Well,
at all.
John, I was having a cigar. I belong to a cigar club in Seattle, and
Yep.
I was enjoying a great cigar with an epidemiologist from the University of Washington. And he said wearing a mask is to keep out a virus, like putting up a chain link fence to keep out a mosquito. And it was so funny because I've been saying that after he repeated it, and that was at the beginning of the so-called pandemic. And now I just saw an article. They used the same expression. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, and it's ironic that we're. Go ahead, Frank.
I could tell you why one word they want the mask: control.
Yeah.
It gives them more control, and it keeps you out of the way. And that's where the government's coming from with that too. But you guys got to lay off Biden. I mean, how many presidents do we ever have that actually can dance with a flag on a flagpole? That was the Brazilian flag that got up on stage, knocked over and was holding it. He didn't know what to do with it. And then walks off stage. What the Brazilian president's hand is out to shake. And the guy looks at him like, are you nuts? I mean, we've got somebody in there that isn't in there upstairs, and somebody else is pulling the strings with us for this. That's got to be sure.
Well, it's either that or he's actually pulling the strings, and that too should make us scared. Either one of those two answers aren't a good one. But go ahead, George.
My understanding is he probably doesn't even know where the strings are.
Well, you know, we're heading into an election year, and what are some of the things that let's not take the conservative voice that's out there now that you guys talk to. Let's talk to the ones who should be listening. What are some of the things that you would say for them to look at, study, and form their own opinion? And I'll start with Frank.
Okay. You can look at the debates itself. Look at what the person's done. Ignore the stuff that is coming over, all the crap that's coming over the internet and all that. Half of it's lies and half of it's phonies. Look the person up. Look at the background. I personally look at the military background because I'd like somebody in. Being a veteran, I like another military person in there, not somebody who's going to fumble around. See what bills this guy's pushed, what offices they held. Did he work outside? Did he have a business? Does he understand business? Where is his money coming from? Who's contributing to him? Who owns him or doesn't own him? These are things that you have to look at closely. You listen to the speech and see if he knows what he's talking about and how he answers, he or she answers questions. Do they circumvent it or do like Biden, run out of the room and you get a question? So those are things to look at very closely.
And George, your interpretation?
Yeah, I think what it is we're going to give a little bit different perspective on things. I worked in our state legislature, not as a lobbyist for several years in Washington State, and I'm going to give a little bit different idea on things. And what I would say is, give us 60 days. It's an hour show, once a week. Give us 60 days, and I believe you're going to be entertained and you're going to gain something. You're going to gain a little bit of knowledge. You're going to get another arrow in your quiver to debate and something else to think about. So we're going to go down a little bit different path. You're going to hear, a lot of people preach, but we're going to use a little bit of levity to educate. So just give us 60 days.
Well, they'll get an economic education, basically, somewhat, because I taught at State University of New York. I was professor. I taught economics. And what you get, it's like simple. The government, what they give you in the inflation rate is a doctored rate. It's a rate. There are two ways to figure it. They figure it the way that you don't have energy and food in it, so that they come out with a lower inflation rate. The proper way that economists use it, those are included. The difference is between 11 and 6 and in the rate, which is large. These are things we can get across to them, things they should be interested in this, that we can tell them about, and educate them on some of the things that aren't out there that much. I don't want to try to get too preachy with them, because my best friend used to hate when I talked economics. He'll call up and say, Frank, stop the economics, but it's important that people understand that they're being lied to. That's the main thing. They're being lied to also with it. But we're going to have a lot of facts like that. We're going to try to go into things. We're going to have a program. Much of it will be about George Soros. It's coming out more and more. But I did a paper on George Soros. And when I went back to find the paper, I couldn't. So I said, I'll redo it. Almost everything that was there before is gone. And some of the statements he made are curtailed. They cut the end off the statements. Isn't that fantastic? So these are the things we bring up.
This is why I think Frank and I have such a great dynamic, because Frank is a former professor and I'm a high school dropout. So I think we're kind of yin and yang of the radio voice here.
Well, and the one thing I noticed for sure is you've got the face for radio, and he definitely has the education not to be on the radio. So I think the combination of the two really works well together.
Absolutely.
So there is something to be said about some levity in trying to get information out. And I love the fact that you guys are trying to have do have a sense of humor about it. One of the things that I noticed with the changing, not just through Donald Trump era, but even before, the social media has a lot of people very sour on comedy right now. Their sense of humor is lacking. They are so tense. Now I'm going to attribute that to a couple factors, because the lifestyle today has changed, because the working class family is under attack for every penny it makes, and every dime being drained out of their wallet. And there is something to be said about a working party, a working class party, and then unfortunately what we've been labeled as conservatives as the conservative party that doesn't take money out of the working class, but does everything wrong to the working class. I don't think we've done a good job as a party in really some areas trying to mend fences and pull people together. There's some commonality that both parties have. And I truly don't think that middle class attack is truly what either party wants to do. And I, your era and my era were just a little bit apart. But somebody who's 30 years old now and grown up under really democratic rule, we've been through Donald Trump era. We've had some really positive numbers. We've had some tweeting actualities. We've had some tweeting mishaps, been labeled a lot of different things. How do you guys take the conservative voice and open up the communication for everyone to dissect? And I'll start with you, Frank.
Well, basically is, if the Republicans are wrong, or even the conservative view, we will say it. We will say where we think it should be and where we should improve and how we can help out improve the lives of the average person out there. The business of saying college, they go the college graduates. I got news for you. I met so many of them that, my God, they couldn't even add, and the thing is, people have to understand the fact that they don't need a college degree. That isn't what makes you good. How many people are on that? Well, look at you. Yeah, George, you were a pilot. And my God, it is very hard, and especially in the service. It takes a couple of years to train a pilot, before you can lose an airplane somewhere like that Marine did. So I'd love to. My friend Lynn was a helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps, and we argue and tease each other all the time about the air, because I was in Air Force. Who has the better pilots, but
we definitely did in the Air Force.
Huh? I'm sorry.
I said we definitely did in the Air Force.
Yes, I knew that.
No comment.
No comment. But we want people to understand. We want to look at every point of view. And when we have a guest on the show, usually, it's a conservative person or Republican, whether they want to go either way. We don't usually have Democrats on the show. I mean, because it is the conservative voice. But we will put a candidate's feet to the fire if we know they're wrong. And I've done that on the show, hit with a harder question because this person was just whitewashing.
George, do you have any follow-up on that?
Yeah, I think as a conservative, we're far more open-minded than the liberal mindset. The mindset is, if you don't agree with me, I'm talking about the liberals now. If you don't agree with me, you need to be canceled. You need to be this. You need to be that. Whereas a conservative go, hey, yeah, that's your opinion. So, we are far more open for different ideas than the left is, and that's kind of what the angle I'm kind of working on, more of being open-minded about all perspectives. They might be wrong, but still going to listen to them, and then I'm going to show them their error, their ways. But
the one thing I'm going to say, and I've listened to what you both said, and I've been preaching this now for 5 years on Real Talk, which is we need to be able to take the information in, we need to be able to dissect it, but we also need to be able to compromise with some common sense. And I think that's what's lacking in Washington, D.C. today, is there's not a lot of common sense compromise.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel the same way?
Well, we've got an example right here. You have groups over here. It's my way or the highway, and the, what do you call it? The word rhino is anybody who doesn't agree with you. They can't be Republicans. And you've had some groups that are almost violent to this thing down here. Now, it's good to say that Nova is an open forum club. We don't do that. We are not extreme. We can discuss things. And I was one of the founders of Nova, and that's what we wanted. We have brought into Nova at times newspaper reporters from the different newspapers. Now, a lot of people liked it. Some didn't because they didn't agree with them.
So I'm going to go back to the term Nova. Can you explain that to the listeners?
Yeah, it's the not Northport, Nokomis, Osprey, Venice area. That's a Republican club.
All right, so you threw that in there, so I wanted to make sure we clarified, because we do have new listeners. Your listeners are used to you throwing those terms out. The listeners that I have are not used to those things. So when you throw that information out, you're actually trying to promote inclusiveness to conversation.
Yes. We had an open mic for a long time, and some people abused it because they started something. They wanted a proposal on the floor, and you can't just throw a proposal on the floor. People have to have a time to look at it and read it and decide whether they want to vote for that proposal. That's only fair. You can't do something.
Listen, we had a great leader in the House who said, "Don't read it, just pass it."
Yeah,
didn't we? I thought we did.
You gotta pass it to find out what's in it. That's
right.
It.
Pass it, find out what's in it, then read it.
Yes.
I go back to some of these things because it's ironic that people forget the history. They want to remember parts of the history, but they forget the parts that really should be impactful. We elected officials to do their job prior to the vote, and not reading something prior to the vote and passing it to do it. That's two different things in totality. and every one of them should be fired, and should never have been able to run again, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican, because I've had people throw out the words mistrust. I would talk about misuse of the vote. When you don't know what you're voting for and you vote anyway, you're misusing your vote.
Exactly.
And that's the same thing with voters today who are going into an election year, who just say, well, I'm Democrat, I'm going to vote Democrat, or I'm Republican, I'm going to vote Republican, and not know anything about any topics. That's, to me, that's just a misuse of a vote.
I work with the election board. Okay, I was for 10 years was a clerk in a large precinct. And I'll explain clerk. Clerk is the one who runs the precinct. He's responsible. He or she is responsible. Anything goes wrong, that they have to know how to fix it right away. Questions, they have to know what to do. They have to train. They have to instruct. They get there by 5:30 in the morning and they get home at around 9:30 at night. It's a rough job. That's why I retired from it, because I was getting older. I was almost 40 now. Come on.
You got shoes older than 40.
You don't look a day over 35.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's really good. I told my arthritis that. But the truth is, I watch people come in. They don't even know who's on the ballot. I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. And you say to yourself, how many times I've been asked, what does this mean? They never find out what the bill means or anything else. And I tell them, I can't answer your question. It's against the law. Well, just explain it to me. I said, I can't answer your question. It's against the law. Well, you're no help. I said, I don't look good in an orange jumpsuit. Thank you so much.
Right. Well, there is, let's stick there for a second, because there's a lot of rules that go with working within the election board. During the day of an election, there have been people in Northport who put their signs a little too close. I mean, there's some really good regulations set forth in order to protect the public from being bombarded before they go in the door and browbeat. I literally went in to vote. It was San Pedro Church over Northport, and it was a few years back. And I literally was walking in, and they said, how are you going to vote?
Ooh.
And I said, the way I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked on. And when I came out, they said, can you tell us how you voted? We're trying to get a feel for how people are voting. No. Here's my problem with that. You're not allowed, first off. They know the rules, but you who's worked these tables and understand the rules, can you talk about why people should be concerned about answering those questions?
Well, going in, no one has a right to ask you anything. Coming out, if you're a news reporter or that, they can ask you. You don't have to answer it, okay? You can just pass them by. Going in, no, absolutely not. Your vote is quiet. There is a 150-foot margin where they cannot come over and give you pamphlets and all. Now, some Republicans did that, and I was clerk, and I went out to this one, and I told her, my deputy told me, I've asked her 5 times now. She keeps crossing the line to hand out stuff. I said to her, let me tell you something. She was a Republican. You cross that line one more time and I'll have the officer down there throw you the hell out of here. And I've done that before. Stop my own people. When you work for the election board, you leave your politics outside. And that Ron, insists on that. Ron Turner, he leaves his politics outside. The thing is, they don't have a right. No one has a right to know what you vote. Let's say simply you screw up your ballot and you walk over to they take it and a lot of them say, here, let me show you. Yes, I can't look at your ballot. I cannot touch your ballot. Anybody takes that ballot is in violation of the law. You don't have a right to. You will get a new ballot, a blank ballot, and that person folds it and puts it in a sealed envelope and then goes into a box that's sealed. So nobody knows what you voted. And then comes the question, really brilliant question, where do I sign my vote? And you tell them, you don't sign your vote. Nobody should know what you vote. You can walk in with shirts and anything else, wear anything when you go in. However, the candidates can't. They can vote and then they get out. You cannot campaign there. These are things that make it safer for us. And I get so many people with stupidity. You know what I'm talking about, George. That one guy that stood up. There were 17,000 blank ballots, and you guys had it. I said, and so Ron Turner told him, he says, that's a lot of baloney. He said, what you're talking about, and of course I know what Ron was talking about, when we had two ballots, and one had all the, laws.
Top of the ticket on one, and then the bottom of the ticket on page 2, basically.
Yeah. Now, what happens is they don't want to vote that. It's blank.
Yeah.
They said, I had so many people come up and said, do I have to vote on this? I don't even know. They never bothered to read, God forbid. I don't know who's there. No, you don't. But it goes through and says blank ballot, and that's right. It counts up the ballots, all the ballots, blanks, and all the rest. And then they ordered all this stuff later on. We have a very good system down here. I work in Northport, on Biscayne during the elections now. But that's the only thing is I can't stand when people don't want to listen and come out with something ridiculous and stupid. They wanted, George knows that, they wanted paper ballots where you check it off and put it in a box. And of course, somebody takes the box and throws it out. It would take, if you had them, it would take 2 to 3 days to start to count up those ballots manually like that for the vote. They do order it. So I have a lot of confidence over all these years, not only in Ron Turner, he's a great guy, but also in the election board.
John, I lived through this myself. In 2002, I ran for the State House of Representatives in Washington State. Lost by 1,952 votes with 2,500 questionable ballots. So you figured out. We couldn't figure out how they did it. In 2004 was a presidential year, and we caught them how they did it. They had drop boxes. So I'm all for absentee ballots, but 100% mail-in ballots, absolutely not. They have drop boxes all over.
Yeah, I agree.
East side of Seattle, where I live. And we had basically lookouts at all the drop boxes. There's a guy on the phone with a trunk full of ballots and said, they call him, hey, precinct such and such needs 12 votes. So he'd go to his trunk, pull them out, and drop them in. And that's basically how Washington State runs an election. And we literally caught him. We filmed him the whole 9 yards, and we took it in. Nobody wanted to do anything about it. So, that's one of the reasons I moved here. So
I want to stop there for a second, because there's been a lot of arguments over the last few decades, both sides of the aisle, both sides saying that we have issues, and
right.
Republicans can't say any different. Democrats definitely can't say any different. It's on video. People pounding the desk, from Hillary Clinton to leadership all throughout. There's some major Democrats who every time they lose an election say the everything was fraudulent, everything. Mm-hmm. And then Donald Trump, of course, the ex-Democrat
for it.
Ex-Democrat is prosecuted. Now there's other things that were in play there. And I still believe on both sides of the aisle, because of who he is as an individual. But when you take and you look at America, United States of America, and who we represent worldwide. The minute that we actually all admit, both parties have said it, both parties are not admitting it, they're saying it. There's a difference. If they were admitting it and showing it, and which we have actually shown that too, we cannot truly come forward and say we can't run an election because we're running them overseas.
Right.
And I just don't see, I get upset with certain things, with voices and harm that's caused by language. And I, I know you're a conservative voice, but I use Tulsi Gabbard as a representative in the service, and I'm not going to demean the fact that she's reservist and she's an officer. She's an officer in the reserves of the armed forces of the United States.
Right.
And when you label her a traitor, like they did on stage, and they absolutely kneecapped her in her own party, that to me screams what they're willing to do. If you're willing to do that with someone, are you not willing to come forward and say and then prove exactly why you lost? Hillary Clinton still says that she lost the election because Donald Trump stole it. Donald Trump says that our current president, Mr. Joe, took it. Well, that's back-to-back elections. And we've got no one truly from either party. And I truly mean this. We've got no one from either party ratcheting up that question. Did we do it? Did we do it with respect? While they go back to the states, everything, the smoke clears, everything settles. But I don't think we can, as a country. I don't think we survive that overseas. It's hard enough to save face every day with our elections. I don't know how we go overseas and say we are dishonest. We couldn't run a good, solid election. Here's what we did wrong. I don't know how we go overseas and run another election. That's the military mind, and Frank, you've got the military mind, and George, I know that you're thinking about it, and I see you shaking your head, but I can't get past the fact that we show a lot of disrespect out there. How do we correct it if it actually is happening? And
I'll give you one example how we change it. Neither party wants to change the system. Neither party, because both parties benefit from the system, from these election machines and everything else. So both parties. So neither party is going to stand up and say, basically shoot themselves in the foot, or we have an expression, dirty up your rice bowl. So no one's going to do that. So until both parties, or at least one party, stands up and said, we need to go back to where elections are free and fair, because right now it's not. And I mean, like I said, it happened to me in 2002, and it's happening a lot more and more and more. But when somebody in either party stands up and said, this is Bravo Sierra, we need to change the system and go back to a ballot system rather than just an electronic system. Because I moved from Redmond, Washington, and we got a little software company maybe you've heard of there in Redmond, Washington, a company called Microsoft. And all of my friends that I used to smoke cigars with, they were either Tableau, which is Salesforce, or Nintendo programmers, or Google. They said it's to hack so easy. And I'm getting some of the inside story from them. Like, if anything goes over a phone line that's not secured, you can hack. Anything goes over the internet that's not 128-bit encrypted, you can hack. So there you go.
Well, the difference is you have two independent sources. We have a very good system. No, and you can't hack the phone line we have. It's a dedicated line. But if you could hack that, that would be out of sync with the electronic poll books, which are independent. They have to gel at the end of the night. We have very few jam ups or anything with the machines we have now. Ron got rid of the other ones, trying to think of the name of them, the Dominion machines right away. The ones we've got now are really good. You have prove outs. Let me tell you, you're there till late at night on the prove out, and every single number has to prove. And if anything is wrong or anybody screwed around, you'll be out of proof. And everything is sealed with numbers. We have whole sheets. And what they did now, and of course they're screaming, "Oh my God, you're making it harder to vote," is they went into the votes, the mail-in ballots and all, and you can't just mail it in. Now you have two guards on the drop box. They're there all the time. It goes directly in that. It's locked. They take it. Guards take it away. They bring it immediately down to the main office. And from there on, they have to sign for everything. There is complete signing, and you can follow the trail from anything there. So we've done a lot down. In fact, a lot of the states now want to try to imitate us with that. However, like that guy that night, he was ridiculous. The system he's talking about with a little check off in a paper box, please. It doesn't make sense. I mean, Ron has worked very hard. Let me tell you, I have the greatest admiration for him. He's open-minded. And I worked on, at the thing, polls, but Bill Bauman and myself, he was my assistant. We took apart the program. Part of the program they weren't closing something out. It had nothing to do with the voting, had to do with the closeout of the people working there. And we figured it out. The reason they weren't doing it, it was at the end of the program. So what we did is we moved that program over to the front of the program. But this is, and it works, but this is how the people who work there think about that job. We're the ones who have to improve it from there. We're the ones that see what's happening. If there's fraud, believe me, we're going to see it. So right now, as far as we know, there has not been any. We accounted for every single ballot. But we're not throughout the country. The one thing, if you remember, Ron was talking about between states, if you can vote twice.
Right.
That's true. We have no control. Let's say if I was still registered in New York, God help me. If I was still registered in New York and I voted there and then it came down here and I'm registered, there's no way of connecting the two. Some states cooperate, most don't. So there's nothing we can do about that till they get a system throughout the country that can look at each one of them and say, this guy voted already.
Well, I think ironically, go ahead.
2 years ago, when we first moved to Florida, I actually got a Washington State ballot.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, that is funny. And I've heard that story before too, but we can't do it because the other state's not cooperating. You figure New York, Hochul down there is going to cooperate with Florida. Are you kidding?
No. And it's, I think it's done by design more than anything. In theory, to really look at the votes in totality and really be honest, you have to have the ability to sit down state to state to state and have that conversation. I certainly do not want federal government anywhere near regulating more. I'm a proponent of get out of the regulations. We have regulated ourselves into more harm's way in places where, whether you're Democrat or Republican, because I'm positive it happens on both sides of the aisle. Where a Republican will say we're not regulating, and next thing you know, you got layers of bureaucratic bullshit all thrown in there. And the truth of the matter is, I'm going to lead this down a different path for you guys for a minute, because we only have about 11 minutes left, and I've thrown this out. I'm going to say this because, and I'll lead in with, I've never seen so many angry people over one word, and that's Trump. I have never seen so many people, and he lost. Let's just say he lost, clean and simple. Joe Biden is our president, but I've never seen the anger about this next election. And right now, it does look like it's going to be Joe Biden against Donald Trump. One ex-president, one current president. And that seems to be how it's shaping up. That being said, the amount of anger and disgust that comes into play and the manipulations within the states to do these things. Do you guys either one see the same conversation that we had 3 years ago happening again, no matter who wins?
Yep. Absolutely. 100%.
Yep.
And I go back to design. I think it is by design. Because this machine that's politics is the grind.
Well, you got one party that wants to divide and conquer. You got another party who wants to unite under the common theme of America, the flag, patriotism, stuff like that. And that's really gone out of vogue. And how's it gone out of vogue? It's gone out of vogue in education. But right now, you have one party that wants to divide the blacks from the whites. And, I have an interracial marriage. So, I proved that I'm a racist. But it's basically one party wants to divide and conquer, and another one's trying to put things back together. And as long as you got people trying to capture the narrative and basically badmouth the other side for having a different idea, things are not going to change. I mean, just like one of my buddies I was having a cigar with, he's a younger guy, and I said, "Hey, what's your definition of a conservative?" And he said, "An a-hole." I go, wait, time out. Explain that to me. Nope, you're just a jerk. Walked off. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So
we got it same in our own party, though, where if you turned around, I said, I like DeSantis. I like somebody younger to get in there. They're old like me, rotten at the core. Okay, I like somebody else in there. You may like Trump. Oh, no, if you don't like Trump, you're a rhino. Don't give even an inch. That's why you got more candidates running, and you choose who you want. The only one I would say, if what's his name, Ramaswamy, I can't stand that guy. No more than 2 minutes with him on TV. I want to shut it off. First of all,
I just say it this way: we got two great candidates. Pick it between two great candidates.
Yeah, we will. Hey, I will support either one of the two that go in. The alternative is flea brain up there, And I'm sorry. Somebody said I feel sorry for him. I said he's been a crook. He's been a traitor with the countries he's taken money from. He's been a phony. I said, and a liar. And you want me to feel sorry for him because you think he's senile?
So I will say this, but he doesn't know it.
I think he does.
Huh? I know. I actually there are times where I feel bad. I feel bad for him in a lot of respect, because and I've had these open conversations with people. I got 27 years medical, and we used to wait till 5 or 6 o'clock at night before we would realize, working on the floors, that things are crazy out there, and there's a definition of sundowners that people don't really know about, that happens in the senior population, and within the hospital, within the nursing homes, they experience it, and it is real, and it's crazy how it all works. And you know, Dave is a good friend of mine, and he's got a comment that what a bunch of bullshit. Dave, we're not promoting Donald Trump on this conversation. So Trump derangement syndrome has to step aside at some point, and just relax and listen to what we're talking about. It's just common sense stuff. And I love you anyway, buddy. And you know that.
I would agree with you, except for 13 coffins. And the man standing there looking at his watch and talking about himself and not caring how many our troops were killed, how many people were left behind. I can't pity him. I'm sorry. I'm a Christian. I'm a Catholic, and I'm supposed to forgive and all. I can't. Not when I think of those parents and those 13 coffins sitting there.
I don't think he made the call. I don't think he made the call.
What's his name said he did. The general said he did.
I still don't think he made the call. I think it's a, you know, I tend to believe that I want to believe that Joe Biden did not make that call. I want to believe that, not independently. The guy who rode the train, did all those things, never really did anything massively harmful like that. Never made a decision like that where it was 13 people died. That wasn't his trademark. Bad decisions, yes. Missteps, yes. Lying about college, where he graduated from, 100%. He did all those things. Those are proven facts. They're not even like misstatements. But you know, there's way too much at stake with the Afghanistan stuff, and leaving equipment behind and doing all those things. I just have to believe that there were much more involvement somewhere along the line there. And it's easy. I think it's really easy. Just like Dave, I think it's really easy to blame one individual and hold him accountable. I say this all the time, and it's true. Stop acting like you lost. Stop acting. You have your president, and you're still touting Trump. If you're still touting Trump and he's not the president of the United States, why aren't you bragging about the greatness that Joe Biden has brought us? There's not one post, not one comment about any greatness about our current president. Ask the working class if they have more money in their pocket today than they have before.
Right.
They don't. It's a freaking fact. This is the party he's put together is a disgrace. Okay, a disgrace. Now, can they do better? There are great people on the Democratic side of the party. There are great people on the Republican side of the party. What we're missing is good, solid people who bring people together to build coalitions so that the right and the left hasn't done anything outside the desk.
See, you're just echoing. Oh, go ahead, Frank.
How do we resurrect Ronald Reagan?
Yeah, we don't.
And the people who were in government then, because they worked it, they were able to work out whatever they needed. And Reagan was a great president. You could see it in everything he did. He loved this country.
1 minute. We have 1 minute left, believe it or not. You know, I think the good way to exit this show is we've got one person, Dave. I love you, buddy. I'm going to be home in about 7 days to have lunch with you. But this show was not about Donald Trump. This had nothing to do with Donald Trump. And that's all the words that you heard. We're not promoting Donald Trump. Nobody said vote for Donald Trump. But this is John Rawlings with Real Talk Radio saying, hold on 1 second. But thanks to Frank, Patti, and George for being part of the show. And you're listening.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're so welcome. And Just hold on one second. We'll talk to you guys soon. Join them. Look them up on WKDWRadio.com and listen to them live on their show. What day?
That's on a Thursday at 3:00.
Thursday at 3:00. Listen to them. All right. So we're off the radio, but I'm staying on Facebook just for a few more minutes because, listen, Dave is a true patriot on his side. 100% left. And he knows it, and I know it. And he knows I'm right. Okay. But the funny thing is, I don't care if Donald Trump is in or not. I just don't want Joe Biden back. And that's a fact. I need somebody that can understand what country he's actually in. And that's the way I feel about it. Give me a good Democratic candidate, and that's fine. I've had the conversation about Tulsi Gabbard. The fact that the Democrats, none of them came forward and said, stop it. None of them. 100% disgraceful. 100%.
Well, even JFK right now would never win his party nomination. Never.
No.
Never.
He couldn't be a Democrat with what they have. There's no way he would endorse that. Look, he was the commander in chief when I was in the Air Force, and we were overseas, and we were a frontline unit. I was in the Air Force, but I was with the infantry and tanks. I always draw a short straw somehow. And we knew he had our back because we were very close to war. Newspapers never talked about that. And the point was, they said we had to hold for at least a week till they could break through to us. We had confidence in him that would happen. With this guy, we were dead. If you were in the service, you might as well sign off on your gravestone because you'd be dead. And now soldiers should never. Look, there are three things I go by: God, country, and family. I'm old-fashioned, maybe.
All right, I've got my granddaughter standing at the door. I've got to let them back in the car. We're heading off to the Black Squirrel Festival over at Kent State University. And you guys have a great day.
You too.
I'll have you guys back on. And obviously, if you're out there and you're antagonized by the non-Trump supporting show, we're just talking about conservative voices.
No.
Take a Trump derangement pill.
This conservatism goes far beyond one person. So.
I know.
Yes.
Listen, we just need some good common sense middle ground, and term limits. I think is a great thing to talk about the next time.
Yeah.
Next time I come back, I'll have a different opinion probably than you on term limits. So
probably, and that's a great thing. I love opposition. But I'll talk to you guys soon. I'll see you later.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.